Hey everyone, and welcome to Robin's Movie Thoughts podcast with your host Robin Leese. Thanks for tuning in. Today I wanted to go over some movies and TV shows I watched in the month of May and give you my thoughts on them. First, Righteous Gemstones Season 4. The fourth and final season of The Righteous Gemstones premiered in March and finished the first weekend in May. The dramedy series surrounding a televangelist family and their hijinks was created by Danny McBride, who stars alongside Adam Devine and Edie Patterson as siblings Jesse, Kelvin, and Judy Gemstone, respectively. The end of Season 3 did feel like somewhat of an end and made me question somewhat if a fourth season was necessary, but the suddenly changed family dynamics with the patriarch of the family, Eli Gemstone, played by John Goodman, who is now in a relationship with an old friend of his deceased wife, Amy Lee, played by Jennifer Nettles, the old friend being Laurie Millsap, played by Megan Mullally, coupled with another great roster of guest performers, made the final season worth it. Sean William Scott played against type, a more stoic and reserved and attempting to be mature character as Laurie's son Corey. Michael Rooker is mysterious and intense as Laurie's ex-husband, who has a history with the Gemstones, and Bradley Cooper pops up in the season premiere as an ancestor of the Gemstone family that started the family's relationship with religion. The highlight of the season for me is Walton Goggins as the uncle, baby Billy Freeman, who is once again trying to become a bigger name in the televangelist community, this time trying to make a big budget TV show around the story of teen Jesus with a hilarious title and a controlling attitude. Overall, I really dug the last season, with the exception that a couple of subplots and attempt at a darker ending didn't quite work for me, but overall, good final season and an 8 out of 10 rating for me. The second and final season of Andor premiered on Disney Plus at the end of April, and each week had 3 episodes released. This proved to be an effective strategy, as the first and second seasons were comprised of 3-episode arcs, and Season 2, those arcs were followed by a 1-year time jump in the story to the next trio of episodes. And just like the first season, creator Tony Gilroy, who previously directed Michael Clayton and wrote Rogue One, while also being an uncredited director on reshoots, crafted an incredible series that proved to be, in the minds of many, including myself, the best of the Disney Star Wars era. He did so precisely by making it a prestige drama that captured the feel and themes of Star Wars, but did so in a far more adult way that made the events that unfolded feel powerful and timeless. No moment feels fake in the show, whether it's the incredible look and practical environment created by production designer Luke Hull, who had the same position on the acclaimed HBO series Chernobyl, the performances by a loaded roster of talented stage-trained actors, or the consequences of the actions of both the Empire and Rebellion. One of the few big criticisms of Andor has been the pacing, and while certain things could go a little quicker at times, and while Season 2 fixes this a lot, episodes 2 and 5 do drag a bit, the character and world-building work done allows for a more immersive and emotional experience, and it rewards the viewer's patience in my eyes. The final 2 arcs of Season 2 and the show, episodes 7 through 12, are really up there with any television production going, and it is the first TV show to have 5 straight episodes with a rating of 9.5 or above on IMDb, episodes 8 through 12. Though those sites are never perfect, just to be clear, but it is incredible achievement nonetheless. Diego Luna as Cassian leads the great cast, and as he becomes a more active participant in the rebellion, leading up to the events of Rogue One, he really leans into the character and is phenomenal. The growing romantic relationship between he and Bix, played incredibly by Adria Arjona, raises the emotional stakes on several occasions. The supporting characters are just as good, if not better, and littered with actors that could be in Emmy contention, including Stellan Skarsgård as Luthen Rael, who, along with Elizabeth Dula as Clea, Luthen's assistant in the antique store, make episode 10 a standout based on their relationship dynamic alone and what they bring to it. Kyle Soller as Cyril Karn and Denise Go as Deidre Miro do scary good work as a couple who work in the Imperial Security Bureau. They both have to balance their relationship with their desire to move up in the ISB, and it's an equally disturbing and tragic partnership in both their arcs. The Empire is shown as competent and bureaucratically evil in a banal, at times, but definitely very intimidating way, as opposed to how cartoonish they can come across in much of Star Wars media. I could signal out all the actors in the cast as being top tier, and how the show really builds up to legacy characters in a great way without it feeling forced, but one I have to shout out is Genevieve O'Reilly, who again performs Mon Mothma. She reprises it after playing the character in Revenge of the Sith, Rogue One, and Ahsoka, and in this version of the character, you get to see her have to come to terms with difficult decisions and morals, and ultimately have to make very courageous choices, with one particular monologue being the shining moment of Episode 9. I also love the soundtrack, which was done mostly by Nicholas Brittle in Season 1 and then Brandon Roberts in Season 2. Don't want to give up too much more away if you haven't seen it, so I'll conclude by saying Andor is, in my opinion, a new kind of peak Star Wars storytelling, and I will give it a 9 to a 9.5 out of 10. The Studio is an Apple TV series centered around Matt Remick, a studio executive played by Seth Rogen, who is now planted as the top exec at Continental Studios and is in charge of their theatrical slate. While it's a position he's always coveted, he's constantly overwhelmed by it and needs the help of his peers. His predecessor, Patty Lee, played by Catherine O'Hara, close friend and VP of production, Sal Saperstein, played by Ike Barinholtz, Matt's assistant, who is then promoted to junior executive, Quinn Hackett, played by Chase Sue Wonders, and the studio's head of marketing, Maya Mason, played by Catherine Hahn. In a satirical way that both pokes fun at and also reveres the film industry, the show looks at issues in movie making like the over-reliance on IP, the balance between creative freedom and box office success, studio notes, the medium of film versus digital, AI, and so much more. A long list of film directors play exaggerated versions of themselves, including Martin Scorsese, Sarah Polley, Ron Howard, and Olivia Wilde, and some A-list stars do the same: Anthony Mackie, Zac Efron, Ice Cube, and Dave Franco. There are some great physical and sketch comedy bits, especially with Seth Rogen and Ike Barinholtz, that work very well, and hijinks and some great laugh-out moments, including when Matt falls and trips over himself. The inside baseball elements of the show's examination of the Hollywood system through the eyes of an exec who is constantly conflicted between his desire to make great art and money for the shareholders, and CEO Griffin Mill, who is played in a guest spot by Bryan Cranston, really elevate the material, as well as the camera work that involves making almost every scene look like it's one continuous take. Very much love this series, and I would put it at a 9 out of 10. On The Last of Us Season 2, full disclosure, I haven't played the games or watched very many of the cutscenes in them. I very much enjoyed the first season. I thought it portrayed a zombie apocalypse / pandemic in a more nuanced and emotional way than a lot of shows in the medium have, and liked the work that creator Craig Mazin did in the first season and in the miniseries Chernobyl. While the second season brings back the great production design, performances, including great additions like Caitlin Dever, Jeffrey Wright, Catherine O'Hara, Young Mazzino, and Robert John Burke, along with guest stars Tony Dalton and Joe Pantoliano, and the intense action, the story is unfortunately way less efficient and calculated. It felt more like a setup for Season 3 than actual fleshed out total season with a singular story, with an inconsistent mix of past and present timeline, and save for the incredible action set piece in Episode 2, a lot of what felt like just passing the time without a conclusion in mind. The relationship between Ellie, played by Bella Ramsey, and Joel, Pedro Pascal, is still very moving and accentuated by how great those roles are played, as is the case between Ellie and Dina, played by Isabella Merced. But the attempt to say something prescient about vengeance and how to move forward in life from personal tragedy doesn't come through when the plot and dialogue comes off as a major step down from the first season. Still come away somewhat positive, but definitely disappointed in what was expected to be a great second season. If I were to give it a rating, I'd give it a 6.5 out of 10. In its marketing, Thunderbolts felt like the first Marvel movie in a while that cared about having a standalone story and using practical action scenes as opposed to CGI. On those fronts alone, this film mostly succeeds, with a ragtag team of down-on-their-luck superheroes led by Yelena Belova, played by Florence Pugh, who are dealing with familial trauma and mental illness and are set up by CIA Director Valentina Allegra de Fontaine, played by Julia Louis-Dreyfus, to be expendable and killed off to destroy evidence of a project to create a superhuman. When Yelena, John Walker, played by Wyatt Russell, Taskmaster, played by Olga Kurylenko, and Ghost, Hannah John Coleman, encounter each other, they also find a mysterious individual named Bob, played by Lewis Pullman, who can't remember where or why he is there. I liked that this movie really dug deep into all these characters' psyches and the past tragedies that shaped them, and did so visually in a creative and cathartic way. While they could have been bigger selling points, the use of Bucky Barnes and Red Guardian really pushed the story and helped the main heroes move forward in their quest to try and expose De Fontaine and rewrite their own narratives. As more is revealed about Bob and his origins and true power, the greater the stakes are raised. The performances by the unlikely superhero team up across the board, especially by Pugh, Pullman, Sebastian Stan, and David Harbour, made the exploration into what makes these characters tick really deep and satisfying. My two big negatives are that the De Fontaine villain role is overly comedic and kind of makes it less tense and feel out of place. And also, while the movie stands on its own for a while, it also decides to establish where it fits in the MCU, set up by the end, and feels kind of pigeonholed, and also even in its marketing before the opening weekend ended. I was hoping for, again, kind of more of a standalone, but outside of that, I was very entertained and moved by the story, and I'd give it 7.5 to an 8 out of 10. The 8th installment in the Mission Impossible franchise, and 4th with writer-director Christopher McQuarrie, premiered Memorial Day weekend and is the last that will be under the Paramount Studios umbrella. Tom Cruise again reprises IMF agent Ethan Hunt, performing death-defying stunts, while for the second straight film, following Dead Reckoning, finding an AI villain known as the Entity that is attempting to control the military arsenal of the world's superpower countries, and with the help of his team. While it was an enjoyable movie for me and a good send-off for the end of the franchise, of the Cruise-McQuarrie collaborations, this felt like the most haphazard and inconsistent edition. The first hour is incredibly exposition heavy and edited far differently than any other MI film. While this franchise has used flashbacks and fast forwards, this one did it to an extreme effect, to the point it felt like it assumed the audience hadn't watched any of the previous installments, or at least not all of the previous installments, I should say. The lead villain, Gabriel, played by S.A. Morales, is also absent from the film for a good hour plus, with kind of a just see you when I see you explanation. And while there are some great supporting players added to the mix, such as Tremel Tillman and Katie O'Brien as a ship commander and Navy diver respectively, Angela Bassett as the president, and Rolf Saxon returning as William Dunlow from the first film in the series in a great role. There are also some just to be a big name or face to say some exposition without much or any characterization. Hannah Waddingham as a commander of a ship carrier, Janet McTeer as Secretary of State, and Holt McElhaney as Secretary of Defense. On the positive end, the action is again incredible, with the Sevastopol diving sequence being over 20 minutes long and using great sound design and practical effects to fully dive into the sea with Tom Cruise, and the biplane chase being nerve-wracking, and another example of Cruise's willingness to push the practical action to new heights. It may be one that I'll revisit with how much I love the series, put up with any action series ever, but right now I will give Mission Impossible Final Reckoning a 7.5 to an 8 out of 10. Watched Wolfman, not in theaters but on Peacock, as a fan of Lee Whannell's last two films, Upgrade and his remake of The Invisible Man. This kind of fell flat for me, while his modern stalker take on the Invisible Man character was fraught with creative set pieces and tension, the family on a trip gone wrong and put in an isolated situation with the dad going crazy felt like just a carbon copy at times of The Shining and not a really great one. I really enjoyed Christopher Abbott and Julia Garner as performers and was hoping for Abbott's first mainstream big lead role to be one in a very good film, but the really rough dialogue that contradicted the belief of the show don't tell rule in filmmaking and the point by numbers story kind of drag what they brought to it. I'd say more, but it's honestly just a movie that I feel ambivalent toward and don't think there's much to it than that. Overall, 5 out of 10 film for me. Thanks again for tuning into the Robin's Movie Thoughts podcast. I can be found on Letterboxd at Robin Leese and on X at Rob the Movie Buff. Like, comment, subscribe. Tell me what you think of these shows and movies and anything else you would like me to review. Really enjoy you as an audience and have a great day.